My name is Jack Gross, president and co-founder of Second Half Network, LLC, and we are fired up to officially launch our new podcast and video series. This is more than highlights and box scores. We're diving into real lives of athletes, the grind behind the scenes, the pressure, the sacrifices, the victories nobody sees. Most importantly, the transition every athlete eventually faces when the game slows down and the next chapter begins. From NIL and branding to business, careers, and life after sports, we're giving athletes a platform to tell their story. Every episode brings authentic conversations with current and former athletes, creators, coaches, and industry leaders who are building what comes after the final whistle. This is where sports, business, media, and opportunity all collide. Welcome to the next era of athlete storytelling. Welcome to Bullpen Talk.
What's up, guys? We're here for the second episode of the Bullpen Talk under the Second Half Network. I'm Noah Spiegel, co-founder, along with my other co-founder, Jack Gross. We're interviewing two Sewanee baseball players today, Harry Fitzgibbon and Childers Winn. Gross and I both got a chance to grow up with these two kids, and now they're thriving in the baseball world. So we're happy to have them.
Yeah, so I want to thank you guys for being on this podcast. Like Noah mentioned, I grew up with Childers and then also played baseball with Harry at Sewanee with these two. So it's pretty cool having two former teammates on here, but also childhood friends. So let's kind of get into it, guys. I mean, we're here to learn about you and what you're trying to do career-wise and athletically. So kind of tell us what got you to the point you're, as rising seniors at Sewanee University playing baseball, and tell us about some experiences that got you to that point.
Yeah, I can start. Growing up, I played a ton of different sports, and ultimately found baseball to be my favorite, mainly because of the guys on my team and the joy that I found playing with and playing for those guys. I think that's the beauty of team sports, and that's the best part of the experience. A middle school basketball coach of mine told me that the ball will stop bouncing, for everyone, but it's the things that you learn about life and the people that you meet along the way that make it all worth it. And I will be friends with the people that I played sports with for the rest of my life. I'm very grateful for that. Whether it's, it's that way in any aspect of it, whether you hit a walk-off or you're laughing about something in the dugout that has nothing to do with the game. It's the shared emotions and the experiences, on and off the field that make sports worth it. And if you aren't, open to making new friends and connecting with people on different levels, you will not have fun playing sports. And that alone has led me to sticking with baseball through the highs and lows of it all.
Yeah, that was good, Harry. I guess I've kind of a similar story. Started playing sports as young as I can remember. With t-ball and everything. So I got an early introduction to baseball. But as Jack knows, we played together for a little bit. Grew up playing football as well. Swam, played soccer for a little bit. Tried wrestling out for a year. Learned that wasn't my thing pretty quick. Basketball, the whole nine. But ultimately, similar to Harry, like baseball kind of became my thing just because I loved it the most. And I honestly probably wasn't my best sport. And maybe we'll talk about this. My brother plays football at Liberty, and him and I played football for a long time. Football might have been a little bit more of a skill for me, but baseball was just kind of what I love. So I stuck with that. And that got me to Sewanee because just kind of grew up an outdoorsman, loved to hunt and fish, and Sewanee was a small school where I could do that and play baseball at the same time. And like I said, we'll get into this a little bit, but the D3 experience kind of allows you to do that and allows you to play sports and continue to do what you love. So that's what really drew me to Sewanee to play baseball. As far as that, I think kind of what it's meant in my life is that it's really taught me more than I feel like any class ever could or any, other life lesson. Like baseball has instilled in me a work ethic and motivation and discipline, and has taught me so many things about life and about myself that I couldn't have learned from anywhere else. And so that's why I think it really connects into the professional world, because it teaches you so much that I feel like, not just baseball, but athletics in general. It's so specific to that and holds so many values that I feel like everybody can benefit from. So I think Harry would agree with that and everybody who plays sports. But yeah, long story short, got to Sewanee to play baseball because it kind of offered the best of both worlds. Have enjoyed all 3 years as much as possible. And just looking ahead into the professional setting, I'm thankful for the experiences that baseball has set me up with to kind of grow, not only as a person, but through baseball and ultimately as the person I'll be in the business field one day. So
That's awesome to hear. I want to hear a little bit about both of y'all's recruiting processes. I know when I was in high school with Harry, it was about like sophomore or junior year when he realized like this is something I can do after high school. Starting with Harry, just tell the people what that recruiting process looked like and when you knew you're going to Sewanee.
Yes. So, yeah, there's always times in high school where you think I can play college baseball or college sports and I can't, like I went through that process a little bit when I was deciding whether I wanted to or not. So I was never really 100% sure about playing in college. And I made the decision very late in my senior year. I think I made it in April. I had an opportunity to play at a top-ranked Division III school, but I was still unsure if I wanted to play collegiately. So I waited to make my decision until I found out from my other college apps at schools that I wouldn't be playing ball at. And once I kind of decided that I was leaning towards continuing to play baseball, I found out that I actually no longer had a spot at that top-ranked school. But it didn't stop me because my heart was already there. So after that, it was a pretty difficult process for me, talking to various coaches and just a lot of thought, a lot of talking with my parents and stuff. But it also affected me mentally, my day-to-day and the way I was playing. I was playing terribly. I decided that I would change my batting stance because I was so bad. And the third at bat, I hit my first ever home run. And watching that go over the fence was pretty cool. And after the game, I was thinking to myself, and I realized I can do this. And so I contacted Coach Burns at Sewanee and talked to my parents, and I committed. And I decided on Sewanee in April, and ever since I stepped on campus that August as a freshman, it's been the best decision I've ever made.
And then, yeah, for Childers too, I know Childers was a all-state defensive end as well. So, I mean, he probably could have played in college for football. And as he was talking about earlier, he was arguably one of, the better football players I've seen just playing private league football growing up. So you kind of want to talk about making your decision between baseball and football, and then also kind of your recruiting process. Like, I know growing up with you, you're one of the hardest workers, always pushed me to be better and do better. So you want to kind of talk about making that decision whether or not to play football or baseball in college?
yeah, I appreciate that, Jack. It kind of you make it sound like a little bit more of a decision than it was, because honestly, and not that I don't feel like I was ever that good at football. I kind of just happened to fall into that spot, but like up until that point, I was pretty terrible. Like, I mean, junior year, I never saw the field or anything like that, and sophomore year, I was still on JV. I mean, Gross and I played intramural that COVID time, and that was when Gross was, throwing the ball, playing quarterback, and then O-line the next snap, and all over the place. But yeah, I just never really, it never really seemed like an option to me. And early on, kind of similar to Harry, I decided really, I guess it was sophomore or junior year, I finally decided that like I really wanted to pursue this playing baseball in college thing. And I'd always worked hard. Like I said, I played travel baseball all my life, but it was never really something that I was set on going super far in. And then once I decided, it was kind of like full steam ahead. So I just started really giving it everything I had every single day. And just really fell in love with the process. I remember, from a young age, thinking that it wasn't even really the results that I enjoyed so much, but just the day to day of like going up to the facility and throwing or lifting or getting the work in. And Jack and I used to go to the gym. Back when he had his license before me, we would go lift every day and go hit, and do all that stuff. And I fell in love with that process. And so that's what really kind of made me attached to baseball. And then, senior year rolls around. I committed to Sewanee early, kind of opposite to Harry. I think I was the second or third commit in the class, and decided, that was what I wanted to do. And applied ED to Sewanee and got in and everything like that. And then had a solid season football wise that fall my senior year. But, even with that, it was never that much of a thought of what I wanted to do, just because I knew I was in the right place. And I felt like that's where I was called to go. And that was the best spot for me. So I didn't give it too much thought. And, in hindsight, maybe I could have, but I've never regretted doing what I did, for the purposes that I did. And like I said, the reasons that I went to Sewanee and playing Division III, there's not much I would have changed about it. So I guess that's kind of my story there. But
So during the first episode, we heard from a D1 golfer, and he kind of talked about his experience playing Division I sports. I kind of wanted to hear about what the life is like playing D3, and kind of like what are the challenges of competing at the Division III level, and how do you think it's different than the student athletes competing in D1?
Well, I'll start with the skills that you're instilled with, or that are instilled in you by Division III. It's probably like the time management and organization skills that it gives you is a whole lot different than D1, because the teachers at D3, they don't teach you, or they don't treat you differently from other students if you play a sport. And they're not really that lenient as to giving you extra time on an assignment or whatnot. Because at Sewanee, especially, I know there's like a fourth of the students are athletes there, so nothing really makes you that special. And also doing that efficiently is definitely a skill that's very hard to get at other levels of collegiate athletics. I know for a fact, actually, that at some big Division I schools with the football teams, they have, people select your class schedule for you, and they tell you exactly what teacher you're going to take. And they just plan your whole academic calendar for you in your classes. And you don't even really get a say in it, and they just do it. And you're on a whole different schedule from all the other students there. So Sewanee definitely puts the student in front of the athlete for the most part.
yeah, I would agree with that. And when you said that, Harry, it made me think of we've got a newcomer to the team last year. He was a sophomore, but he was formerly at a Division II school, pitcher, and he was telling us that, even at the Division II level, they would, whatever situation they were in a class, when they had to go to like the regional or to the conference tournament or whatever, their coach was like, you can either take your exams or I'll just automatically like get you guys all an 85 on your exam and you don't have to go take it. So like the difference kind of shows in that even the Division II to Division III level, the gap is so large to where academics are really prioritized at the D3 level. And it's kind of like you're expected to, get your sports in where you can, but like you're there to get an education, and that obviously comes first. So that's something that would stand out to me. And I think that Division III, whether you like it or not, forces you to put the time into the academics that most other people would without, like Harry said, without many leniencies there, because, I think it kind of slopes down from D1 to D2 and then a big drop down to D3 with the amount of kind of space, wiggle room that you're given there to focus on athletics without prioritizing academics. So,
And yeah, I was going to say, man, we're going to follow up with a question about the student athlete at a Division III school and kind of enhancing you and pushing you to do things and get out of your comfort zone that you wouldn't have to do at Division I schools. So if you want to kind of talk about this unique experience, like going to practice and then going to class, and how Harry was kind of talking about the whole idea of like these teachers don't make exceptions for you. So you're on the road as you would be for Division I schools. And you go to practice and you do all these things that Division I athletes are doing, and to the same extent, but you also have to do well in classes. So, do you want to kind of talk about your routine or things you do to help you in that scenario, or kind of the uniqueness that you find in that ability to be able to go to practice and games, but still show up to class and perform extremely well on your tests and exams and papers?
Yeah, so it's definitely a grind that no other level really faces. I mean, I one of the things or strategies that I use is I look at my work for the week. I know if we're away that weekend and I have something due Monday, it's really hard to bring myself to do the work on the road. Um, Especially you're in a hotel or you really like sometimes you'll go down to like the office space in a hotel and get your work done, but it's just hard to lock in. So I do my work pretty few days, 4 or 5 days before it's due, and that's it's a good habit to get into with all of your classes. But with tests especially, um, the more important ones, if you have a good coach, we do have a coach who will, you know, you text him, say, "Hey, coach, I'm so sorry, but I've got this big test coming up tomorrow. Um, I'm gonna have to study during practice time." He'll say, "Well, can you just come and get your work in early? I totally get it," and he'll let you do it. And then it's a good little thing that he does for us that I don't know if many other places has.
Yeah, that's definitely, and I would bounce off that. Like that's definitely the flexibility that it, and whether it's program to program. I mean, I've got friends at the D3 level that it feels like have a lot more rigorous of a schedule, but at the end of the day, like the fact is that each team, each program has a certain amount of hours that they can use in a season and in a week, and that can't be exceeded. And maybe some people kind of try to tiptoe around those edges, but we follow it pretty close, and our coaches are pretty lenient with us and helping us out. But I would say, the unique blend of Division III with having to balance academics and athletics, it just requires a lot of focus. Because I know for me, sometimes after a long practice or a long lift, the first thing on your mind is not the assignment you have to do the next day or the paper coming up in a week. It's kind of like, man, I want to get my rest and recovery. But at the same time, we're preparing for something a little bit different than student athletes at a different level. So I think that we kind of step up to the challenge well and take care of that to the best extent, but it definitely requires a different level of focus. So.
I think based off of hearing from both of y'all's experiences, it sounds like Division III athletes have more emphasis on their their other side of their life, beyond sports. And I kind of wanted to talk about career paths and what you guys are doing this summer, what you're interested in. Harry, I want to start with you. What's your life like off the field, and what do you want to do professionally?
Um, yeah, so this summer I'm working in private equity for a private equity firm in Nashville, and I don't necessarily know if it's something that I want to do per se next year, post grad and everything. But I did work a private equity internship last summer as well at a different firm, and that gave me some good experience into finding out about things that I like and what I don't like. But the best way to do it and figure all of that out is by working in various fields. I worked a couple years ago. I worked at a day camp in the mountains of North Carolina. I also worked a law research internship at Vanderbilt University. I worked at baseball camps, and I did the private equity thing. I've been fortunate enough, to receive all the opportunities that I have. And sorry, I was at my noties. But at the same time, the best part about all of those experiences is that you find what you like and you find what you don't like, and you can keep doing trial and error from there. And if you use your connections and you gotta, it's hard. I get it. And to be brave and reach out to people you've never met before and whatever. But if you use your connections and well enough, you can get jobs that give you the opportunity to figure out, is this the right way for me? So that's kind of what has brought me to private equity.
Yeah, I would say, similar to that, looking at summer specifically, like especially for Division III athletes, that like the summer is a crucial time to, not only build this experience, like his experiences, like Harry was saying, but also kind of fill in some gaps in your resume and fill it with opportunities and internships and kind of continue to network and build connections. And that's something I've done, but embracing the true culture of Division III athletics, I've for the past couple summers kind of juggled that also with playing summer baseball at the same time. And for the audience who's not super educated on that, like a big thing with baseball players in the summer, since it's a sport you can kind of constantly play without much rest in between. College players will play a collegiate wood bat league and play against each other multiple days a week, and so that's something I'm doing this summer while maintaining an internship at the same time. So I'm playing summer ball, 5 or 6 days a week, but during the day going to work and embracing the grind of that, waking up at 5:15 to get to work by 6:30, and 8-hour days, and then going to the field and playing a game that night, and then kind of repeating it all over again. And that's definitely built up, a spirit of, just consistency for me and perseverance, because some of those mornings are tough and those late nights build up. But I think learning how to manage that is something that Division III athletics will teach you, because the value placed on kind of what lies ahead in the future and building out that resume is something that's highlighted especially, but at the same time, we all do it because we love the game. And I don't think that love for the game is any different, at least for me as a Division III player, than it would be for a Division I or Division II or, anything like that. So, yeah, my summers kind of looked, I guess past couple of summers have looked a lot like that. And this one especially has been busy so far, but like I said, just trying to balance it the best I can and get the best of both worlds while I still can. So.
Yeah, and also I kind of wanted to follow up with what Childers was talking about, is the whole idea of you guys are like prepared for these situations, whether it's, waking up at 5 a.m., training, and then going to work for your internship. So do you guys want to kind of elaborate on the whole idea of like how the D3 athletic experience has not only molded you into someone that could actually make an impact in a career, but also on the baseball field, but also, give you a leg up when you're working and things like that? Is it easier for you when you see like waking up at 5 a.m. and going to train for baseball, then go to your internship? Or you kind of see a difficulty with doing that? I just want to hear what you guys say, how like D3 athletics prepares you for like just working and kind of managing that balance, as Childers was talking about.
It definitely does. And at Sewanee, especially, it teaches you in the best way possible, because not only with D3 do you balance school, baseball, and your friends and social life. That school actually gives you the best. It gives you the best balance of all three, but you learn how to balance all of them, and you learn how to work hard while balancing all of them. And everything, like, you have a baseball game on Friday, you've got a test on Friday morning, and you've got, like, I don't know, you've got to meet with the dean of students about some fundraiser that your fraternity is doing that day as well. And, you're just doing a multitude of things that, seems like impossible when you look at it from, a different perspective, but you really learn how to juggle all of them effectively. And I've seen with the interviewing process that I've experienced, is that it gives you a leg up immediately, because it always gives you something to talk about right off the bat. And then it also shows the person interviewing you knows that this guy works hard. This dude has had to put in the hours. And so I know he can put them in for me as well. And once you get in the office and you get that job, you put your head down and you work, because that's all you know. That's all you have known the last, 4 years of college baseball. Is you get there, you get to the field, is essentially the office, and you just go, so it definitely does.
Yeah, I don't think I can follow that up, Harry. That was that's really good. And I think that, putting your head down and work, like something, if I could put it one way, it'd be like, you take Division I and you look at it like a pie chart, and it's like, for a student athlete, like it's probably about 90%, on your athletics, and then the academics, and there's exceptions to that, but it's like the pie chart would primarily be filled with the athletics there. And then, you maybe look at some other opportunities and it's more 50-50. But I think with Division III, I would take it and divide it by about, 5 or 6 different factors. I mean, you've got social life, you've got school, you've got potentially fraternities and all that. Then you've got athletics, you've got hobbies, you've got everything, and it's kind of all thrown together and meshed into one big pot. And it's like, I don't know that any other division of athletics will kind of allow you to experience so many things at one time, and allow you to, flourish in so many things at one time, instead of just focusing on getting really, really good at one thing. You're having to get really good at multiple things all at the same time without really much room to think about it. And it's just kind of that immediate pressure that, allows you and kind of forces you to mold into the person that you become. So that's how I'd put it.
That's a great point. And building off kind of what you were just saying, Childers, about how D3 allows you to kind of put your hand in all these different pots. Like your whole life isn't baseball, but it's still a big part of it. I think D1 athletes is probably a little different. So I think you guys have been able to prepare for your professional careers in a great way. And we did a segment in the first episode about what is your favorite moment in sports, preferably your college careers. So I want to start off with Harry. What's been your favorite moment?
Okay, so I would definitely say it was later in the game. I think it was like the 6th inning, or maybe, yeah. And the bases were loaded, and I didn't play much my first 2 years, and I didn't play much either last year. But that was I had a couple of injuries, and there's guys playing in front of me who were playing pretty well. But I had my first at bat last year, and it was bases loaded, and I'm juiced up. I'm ready to swing out of my shoes. And I get given the take sign. I got kind of a little angry about it, and then next pitch just drills me in the back, and
I remember watching that from the bullpen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was electric. It was for several reasons. One of them being that in practice I get hit all the time, but I got hit, and I was so pumped up that I got on base that I like bat flipped, and I like screamed at the dugout, and you probably never see anyone pimp a hit by pitch that hard ever again. But it was an RBI, and it was my first time reaching base in college, so that was definitely my favorite moment.
Yeah, to go off what Harry was talking about, I just remember it's like sitting with Noah, and we were like scrolling on Instagram or something. We see a video of like, a player, freak out, like you mentioned, you bat flipped when they got hit by a pitch. And I was like, there's no way that's actually Harry, and it turned out to be you. But I thought that was electric. And to be honest, man, you stepped in a position and you did your job, but also you were super pumped about it because you saw an opportunity where you could help the team, and you did. Like, that's the same thing as getting a base hit, man. You got that RBI in, and you didn't lose an out, so you did your job. So for Childers, I know you're playing in the Coastal Plains League. You could also talk about your favorite moment, but I want to hear like your experience doing that as like a Division III baseball player too.
Yeah. I think how would I put this? I mean, it's definitely, well, first off, it's a little bit more of a balanced league than it seems. I mean, it's a really good summer collegiate league, but I mean, we've got a handful of guys from Lynchburg. I guess that's kind of a little bit higher level of a Division III program, but we've got kind of guys from all over. We've got, from that Division I, we've got some JMU, some VMI, Baylor, a couple other big programs, and kind of experiencing that and pairing it up to my experience is a little bit different because a lot of those guys, the way they think is all geared toward baseball. And in a lot of ways, I would say that baseball is extremely important in my life. And I try to push myself just as hard, if not harder than all those guys. And that's what kind of stands out to me is that, just being at the Division III level doesn't mean that you don't have the ability to be just as good, if not better, than some of those players at different levels. And we've got guys on the team. We've got a Division III first team All-American as our second baseman. And he works and stands out, against all the big time D1 guys on the team. And I would say that just goes to show that there's really, anybody can close that gap. And sometimes that's a wide gap between teams, but certain players can push themselves to stand out at that level. So, we're only 4 games into the season, so there's a lot to learn. But from what I've experienced so far, I would say that really like the gap between D3 and D1 can be closed pretty quick just by hard work ethic and holding yourself to a high standard. And at the same time, seeing those guys and what their lives look like and hearing about their college experience is allows you to kind of notice how different the Sewanee experience and the D3 experience is overall. But as far as my favorite moment, I mean, I feel like the best are kind of yet to come. I would probably say, pitching against Oglethorpe last year in a big conference weekend, but it's hard to say that's my favorite because we lost. So probably wouldn't say that. I guess maybe closing the game at Birmingham Southern our freshman year. We had a little bit of a lead, but just being trusted in that spot and doing the job. When they actually went on to be a College World Series team that year after the school actually shut down. So playing against them, that was fun, and being in that big spot, just getting the opportunity to do my thing and stand for what I stand for there has just been a lot of fun. So yeah.
And then before Spiegel wraps this up with like the final questions, I kind of want to ask like you guys if you have any like funny memories or like funny things you do at the D3 level, because you see that D3 experience everywhere of like funny, videos of buses breaking down, or like do you have a funny story or funny things you guys have at Sewanee that like stands out to you guys?
I'll let Shoulders go first on this one. I can't think about this.
I've got an immediate answer. This kind of just goes to show, the looseness, and it's not a very tense atmosphere always at the Sewanee, at historic Montgomery Field. And I guess the first thing that pops into my head, the funniest thing that happened is probably ranks, one of the funniest that's happened in my life. There was a close second this year with a close friend of mine getting hit on back-to-back pitches during BP and kind of almost dying on the field. But this was, I'm going to preface this story. So a bunch of us were in the bullpen. We were in a close game. Actually, I think we were getting blown out because of what'll come with this story. But we had a freshman at the time, good friend of ours, who was called to get hot all of a sudden in the bullpen, and so he comes running down and comes out of the facility into our bullpen. The way the field's set up, like you open the door and you step right in the bullpen, and he starts taking all of his layers off, and he's got like 4 coats on and everything, and he takes his like jacket off and his hoodie, and then all of a sudden like grapes scatter everywhere across the ground of the bullpen. And it's just like all these grapes bouncing around, and he's trying to get hot. This is like a serious moment. And we're all just like losing it in the bullpen because it's like the funniest thing we've ever seen. And he finally gets all of his layers off, like navigates through all the grapes, and he realizes he doesn't have his jersey on. And we're like, dude, what are you like? You got to get hot now. You don't have time to go get your jersey. And so he runs back in the facility, gets his jersey, does a couple arm circles, throws a warm-up pitch, and like the first pitch goes like 10 feet above the catcher's head and like into the facility. And then the next pitch, is like 10 feet in front of the catcher. And I say all that not as anything against our teammate there, but it's just a funny moment where there was no judgment. Whereas like a D1 game, that might have been a tense atmosphere and everybody's like, getting a little upset and tensions are high. But just the kind of lightheartedness of knowing that like he was able to figure it out and get going and kind of get dialed in and then be ready to play in that game is something I feel like kind of stands out as a bigger picture moment about Division III is there's still opportunities, doesn't not as much as on the line as maybe with the Division I game, although it may not seem like it sometime, there's plenty of room for those funny moments in there. So that's what I would say is my funniest story moment of Division III.
Yeah, that was all time. Shout out Matty Ice on that one.
Matty Ice, man.
But I would probably say this is like really, it's not necessarily a moment, but it's our bench fraternity called Theta Chi. It was started a couple years before we got there. But it's a dugout fraternity, but like not the whole dugout is in it. You gotta like qualify. You gotta be a talker to get in it. And we have I give the guys a pregame pep talk about I couldn't even tell you what. Just a bunch of nonsense.
Can you mock one for us real quick? Like what you would say in that huddle to like
Chi.
fire us up or something?
I'd say, all right, guys, long day ahead of us today. And then I'd make sure that the two freshmen Theta Chi pledges would bring their mug root beer and their milk duds. Those were essential to have in the dugout. And then I started talking about, maybe I'd give like the credit isn't given to the critic or the viewer, but the man in the arena whose face is marred with sweat, dust, and blood. Sometimes it's like that. Sometimes it's a little more cash. And sometimes I let other people give the speeches too. But it gets the fellas going. And it has just created some of the funniest memories. Like we have a kid just wear like a helmet from like the 1990s in the corner of the dugout for like the whole game. It's pretty good. It's just the dugout shenanigans and tomfoolery is really my favorite, I'd say.
Yeah, I remember my 1 year there, me and Harry had some pretty funny sayings in the dugout. One of my favorite was like fish in the kennel or something like that. I don't know if they still do that anymore. Didn't really make sense, but kept morale high for the boys. And
when we'd score runs, it'd probably be my favorite moment. Would probably be when we scored runs in Florida and you were doing the Havana Gita in the dugout.
Yeah. Chip Hooray.
That was
That's why Gross had to transfer to Tulane and quit D3 baseball.
That's right. Exactly right. Now I'm the business side of sports. So I sadly had to hang up the cleats, but get to do cool things at these interviews. So Spiegel, you kind of want to wrap it up with the last question we have for 'em?
Yeah, you guys already kind of touched on it, but like what ways has baseball shaped your leadership, communication, and just work ethic compared to the average college student like myself?
I would say just how to deal with different people in different situations. The bigger the team, the more experience that you get from that. Because you have to learn to get along with, our team, Children's Helmet, we have like 54, 55 guys or something.
Wow.
Yeah. And you got to like, no one's enemies with each other on the team, Why would you want that? But you got to learn to, communicate effectively with different people on different levels. And outside of the work ethic piece, obviously, that is something that is given to you that, not a lot of people get. Not a lot of, you can't really teach that skill. And being at a school like Sewanee, where, if you're not a nice guy, people will find that out pretty quickly. You learn a lot about how to do that and how to be very personable and get more people to, not only like you, but trust you with things. And so that's what I'd say outside of work ethic, obviously.
Yeah, I think I could pick from a plethora. I don't. I think I could talk about what specifically baseball has taught me. I mean, I could go hours on end, giving specific things. But one thing that I think is important that college athletics and baseball specifically, and you'll see why here in a second, has taught me is that like really how to handle failure and knowing that failure is a part of life, and taking me into the professional setting, like you're going to fail, you're going to experience trials and tribulations. And a lot of that, also has to do with my faith and my Christianity and my faith in the Lord. But knowing that, with baseball specifically, it's a sport that's based around failure. And the more you think about it, the more you realize that, like, you hear Hall of Famers or Hall of Famers to get a hit, like one out of every 3 at bats. And that would be like really good, or pitcher's good because, every, certain day he has a really good outing, but the other day he's going to get hit or give up runs. And just working with my little cousin playing baseball today, like telling him, his favorite player is Shohei Ohtani, and my cousin will throw a bad pitch, and I'll be like, you think Shohei Ohtani throws it where he wants to every time? Like, absolutely not. But having the mentality to get up there, next pitch, next at bat, next inning, next outing, is something that I feel like takes everybody who plays the game a long way. Because if you can learn how to just look forward to the next one and, apply that to life. And, you have a bad day at work or a bad interaction or even, bomb an interview, on to the next one, because the opportunities are going to continue to be there. But if you're dwelling on the past, you're not going to be able to, look forward to what lies ahead, and you're not going to be able to effectively pursue, what's in store for you in life. I think about something to me, in the Bible, it talks about like a parable of the sower. And, back in the day, and, old agriculture, if you were pushing a plow and you were looking behind you, like you go kind of all curve forward, but the only way to continue, on a straight line ahead is to look forward and look at your destination. So I think looking ahead and learning how to overcome failure and just realizing that, it doesn't affect you, and all you can do is learn from it and move on to the next opportunity, really plays into life overall for me and a professional business setting. So that's what I'd say in relation to baseball.
Yeah, to like kind of wrap this up, like last question, I kind of want you to do like maybe a small elevator pitch or something like that to basically like promote yourself and kind of give like the viewers one last, thing to walk away with, like from Harry Fitzgibbon and Childers Winn. Like, what do you want the audience to remember you guys? Like, how do you perceive yourself? Just like something to be like, this is who I am. Like, athletics made me this way, and this is like what I plan on doing.
Sure. So I'm a senior at Sewanee. I'm an economics major. I'm economics and finance at Sewanee are kind of in the same boat. So whether you want to go into finance or not, is fine if you're an econ major there. But I'm going into my last year of baseball. It's kind of hard to, accept that and accept that, this will probably be it for me in ball. But it doesn't mean that it's the end of like fun and competition, because with what I've experienced in the business world and the commercial world, it's all competition out there, and you want to find your niche and you want to go for it, and that's something that I'm in the process of right now. But I promise to, everyone, there's something for everyone. And there's something to make a living off of with everyone, or for everyone. So, as much as sad as you may be when, the ball stops bouncing, there's always new opportunities.
Yeah, that was really well put, Harry. Yeah, I mean, I obviously senior, same spot at Sewanee, I'm a natural resources major, with more of a, environmental, outdoors, natural resources focus. But, I think what makes myself stand out, I mean, I'm just like everybody else, but, I think just the consistency day in and day out of knowing how to deal with anything that, could be thrown at me in life, whether it's an academic challenge or, a bad outing on the baseball field and having to bounce back for the next one, or whether it's picking a teammate up who's lacking behind in a conditioning exercise and staying back with them and pushing them, but also understanding where they're at and putting myself in their shoes. I I think the experiences that baseball and the life of a Division III athlete has equipped me with are something that few others could experience. But at the same time, you know, I just want to show up every day to you know, not put myself at the highest level, but, you know, ultimately glorify the God who I serve, and ultimately, you know, be the best man I can be for those around me, through how I push myself, how I work, and just, you know, enjoying the all the opportunities that I'm blessed with, and doing the best I can with those. So yeah.
Yeah, once again, thank you guys for coming on. Childers Winn and Harry Fitzgibbon.
Thank you guys so much.
Y'all, it's a blast.